gequatscht habe ich schon lange nicht mehr.
I did find something of interest. I'll leave it here for you to read.
Sehr schön. Ich bin gespannt. Travels in the Northlands by Jermaine the Discoverer. The first part. In my many years as a traveling poet and bard, I have journeyed far and wide across the fair realm of Arcady, and I have seen sights most people have not dreamed. I have stood on the magnificent and terrible southern capes in the midst of winter when the storms are at their fiercest, while waves as tall as the towers of Altaban washed over my frozen body. I have witnessed the monstrous beasts that lurk in those dark and deadly waters of the south swallow brave galleons whole, creatures the size of mountains that with a flick of a tail can touch the depths of the sea and the stars themselves. I have crossed the great ocean from north to south and from east to west, and in the course been stranded on desert islands with no sustenance but what I could gather from the sparse vegetation for months at a time. I have ridden the giant Algoan across Changangriel, the wasteland from Altaban to Montalba, and further south, where the Teruk, the oases, are few and far between. And I have seen the shifting dunes above the ruins of Gorimon, precious jewel of the Bakshevan Empire, concealed for centuries by the coarse and the treacherous sand. And I have journeyed far west, carried on goodwill and destiny by shadow ships, to the strange and unknown cliffs of a world unseen by most, a world of an unfamiliar tongue and customs, a world of great wonder and mysticism. I have seen all this and more, but the fairest sights still I have seen in the lands of the north, from Ireet to the border mountains, from Tyrene to Bay of Fire. No sight can ever compare to dawn at Mount Tyranny, looking out to the plains of Nedra, where wild stallions run free in the thousands, and to look on the city of Coruscant, the Pearl of Fire, while the boiling sun sets in the ocean beyond, the slow waves reflecting dark yellow and red as they leap slowly upon the sandy shores, is an experience truly treasured and never forgotten. These lands are blessed by the Creator, shaped by men, yet wild and free and fertile, home to the greatest cities, the most precious sights and the most cultured and civilized people in Arcady. Of all the fires I have rested my weary legs by, of all the taverns where I have learned the legends of tale spinners and memorized the songs of bards, of all the lands where I have wandered from the city to village, it is to the Northlands I return time and time again to learn evermore. Join me now, for I will evoke in you the very emotions I first experienced when visiting the sights and treasures of the northern lands. Join me, and I will surely bring you there, to the exotic midst of this blessed land, and you will pine for its rugged coast and green woods and its hardy people, and like me, you will never rest until you can return to yonder shores. Mercuria, O Mercuria, thou unkempt diamond, of capitals thou art by truth the fairest. Thy counsel makes seek for knowledge, kept within its centuries, sought and gathered. By men wiser than the ages, brought hither by word of mouth. Mercuria, change thou not the course of war between thine people. Diplomat, wise man, magician, all this and more. Thou hast without equal the mark of merit and virtue. Written by Jermaine Earthin, the poet. The august capital of Ireet, the unified country, Mercuria lies on the hardy southern coast of the Northlands, halfway between Tyrone and Coruscant. The port of call for merchants, traders, adventurers and pilgrims from all four continents. A place of commerce and diplomacy for millions of humans and other species. Schreibfehler. Ireet is a strong and proud land perched between the plains of Nedra to the north, the land of the Tyrant to the west, the great sea to the south, and the forest of the Northlands to the east, and inhabited by humans, Dolmari, Tyran, Mole people, and Vinir. Ireet was formed after Mercuria emerged as a major center for diplomacy and trade, and became the banner under which the surrounding lands united as one. Ireed is a democracy, currently led by the Chief Council of the Ireed flag, Lord Igvan Dallin. The High Council, composed of the ministers, who govern by representation, resides in the Mercurian Hall of Assembly, flanked by the palace and the barracks. The Ireeds are traditionalists, and their form of government has barely changed over the last few millennia. In High Tongue, Ireed means unification or assembly. Mercuria is one of the largest cities of Arcadia, the capital of Ireed, and a center for trade, diplomacy and cultural diversity. Populated by a large variety of races from human to Vanir, Mercuria has grown from its origins as the birthplace of humanity to a city of all Arcadians, and the hub of the civilized world. Founded 20,000 years ago at the shore of the then unconquerable ocean, it is the first known permanent settlement of the emerging human race. Initially left to its own devices by more developed races, Mercuria grew large and fat and wealthy. With newfound confidence, it passed through a period of expansion which gained it a reputation as a merciless aggressor, which soon brought violent attention from the Tyrant in the west and the Dolmari in the north. After years of war, Mercuria was decimated and subsequently rebuilt with sufficient reinforcements to weather attacks from both sea and land. Peaceful times followed, whereupon Mercuria settled into the role it has in today's Arcadia. Although all surrounding areas fall under its jurisdiction, there is sufficient self-governing and few central taxes to appease all but the most disgruntled. The huge areas of farmland around the city benefit from the well-kept roads, markets and the busy export to other lands. Nearby villages benefit from the military might of Mercuria, protecting them against roving barbarians and the tyrant armies. And Mercuria also provides the people of the Northlands with one of the best and busiest ports in Arcadia, allowing travel to distant destinations around the world.
Are you done? Let me take that back for you.
Boah, alter Schwede, jetzt habe ich aber echt einen trockenen Mund. So viel vorgelesen habe ich noch lange nicht. Alles klar, okay. Haben wir noch mehr Bücher? Ich bin gespannt. Echt gute Geschichten dabei. Ja gut, kennen wir schon. More books. So, das haben wir schon, das haben wir schon, das haben wir schon. Dann fehlen nur noch die Arcadian Folktales.
A favorite topic of mine. I have just what you're looking for.
Ich fürchte, das bringt die Geschichte nicht großartig weiter. Also, ne, in Form von neuen Aufgaben, neuen Orten, die ich besichtigen kann oder so, aber ganz ehrlich, jetzt haben wir schon so viel gelesen über die Hintergründe und die Geschichte von Arcadia und von den Drachen, den Drykin und was weiß ich noch alles. Dann nehmen wir das auch noch mit.
I did find something of interest. I'll leave it here for you to read.
Alles klar. Dann lass mal sehen. Cedra, the faithful wife. Cedra was married to a brute of a man named Kari. He was a bully who drank, cursed, gambled and beat up his wife when he'd lost coins at the cups table. Still, Cedra treated Kari with respect and care. She fed him when he was hungry, she made his bed and washed his back, and she laid down with him when he told her to. She never complained of her hardships to anyone, even though some days she woke up with bruises all over her body. Despite her husband's treatment, Cedra was a beautiful woman with lovely dark hair and green eyes, and men would admire her when she went to the market for food or the town well for water. But none dared approach her, fearing her dangerous husband more than they admired her beauty and grace. People would say, "Poor Cedra, she deserves better than what she has. She is so good and patient, even though her husband mistreats her every day." But no one was willing to do anything to free her from her husband, as they all feared his wrath. "She chooses her own path," they would say, "and it is not our duty to interfere." Then, one day, a tall and handsome prince rode into town to visit with the elder council. When he spotted Cedra carrying 2 heavy buckets from the well to her home on the edge of town, he was taken with her beauty and youth, and he jumped down from his horse to help carry her buckets home. On the way, he offered Cedra courtship, but when told she was already married, he bowed respectfully and excused himself for acting inappropriately. That night, Cedra's husband heard about the prince helping his wife, and after striking her down for letting royalty interfere with her duties, he strode drunkenly, for he had already had his usual fill of dark ale, towards the tavern where the prince and his cohorts were staying. When Carré arrived at the tavern, the prince was eating dinner, and when told Cedra's husband was there to see him, the prince stood and waved the man closer. "I must congratulate you on your good taste in marriage," said the prince, "for your wife is the most beautiful and good-hearted woman I have ever met." And then he offered Carré a seat and a tall mug of ale, but the angry husband did not appreciate the prince's advances, and he drew a sword and lunged at the prince before his guards could react. The prince was quick and lucky to avoid certain death, and before Carré could make a second strike, the prince had recovered his sword from where it stood by the wall, and stood ready to fight the brute. "Leave him be," called the prince when his guards drew arms and ran to protect their liege. "This is between him and me." Smiling briefly, he nodded his head to Carré and stood to attention. Obviously, his skill with the sword was formidable. Carré, a coward at heart, knew that if he fought fairly, he would surely die. And he sheathed his sword, but loosened the knife he had tucked up his long sleeve. "My pardon, prince," said Carré. "My love for my wife is such that I am blinded by jealousy. I offer you friendship and apologies." He extended an open hand to the prince and smiled a broad lizard smile. The prince, unaware of Carré's mistreatment of his faithful wife, smiled back, put down his sword and extended his own hand. "Your apology is accepted, sir." Then, suddenly, Carré's knife was in his hand and moving in a blur towards the prince's exposed throat. Had it not been for the quick eye of a nearby guard, who with the broadside of his sword struck Carré on the side of his head, the prince would have been dead. The knife carved a deep scar in the prince's shoulder, but did no serious harm. Carré was taken away to the town prison to be judged when the sun rose. His crime was surely punishable by death, especially if Cedra would testify to his cruelty in front of the judge. Free of Carré's tyranny, the townspeople now spoke of Cedra's suffering by her husband's hand. But Cedra would not herself even now speak against her husband, and instead of being sentenced to death, Carré was sent away to work the king's mines for 25 years. Taken with her faithfulness, the prince yet again offered Cedra courtship, but again Cedra declined, for she was still a married woman. Then, 1 year later, Carré attempted to escape the king's mines by killing 2 guards and climbing the walls, but he was shot down with an arrow and died in agony and disgrace. Again, the prince visited Cedra's town, bringing condolences and a renewed offer of courtship, and this time Cedra agreed. Months later, the prince and Cedra were married in a glorious ceremony, and when the old king died, the prince became regent, and Cedra his queen. She was as good a queen as the land had ever seen, and she was loved dearly until the day she died. And her funeral was the grandest and most tearful in memory. Ach du Scheiße. Okay, Moment, die eine Geschichte kann man noch lesen. The Children of the Lake. There was a village by a lake where no couple had borne a child for 20 years. The villagers were desperate, for without children their village would not wither and die, and they turned to their god for help. The next morning 50 young children rose out of the misty lake and wandered onto the shores, much to the joy of the childless women. "We are yours," said one of the children, "as long as you remember one thing. You are never to fish from this lake again. Instead, you must learn to hunt in the forest and live off the land." The villagers agreed, though they worried they might go hungry since they were used to catching and eating fish from the lake. But it didn't take long before they had taught themselves to hunt and grow wheat and potatoes in the fields. 18 years passed, and then One day an old man grew tired of rabbits and deer and potatoes and bread, and he longed to catch a big fish and cook it over a sizzling fire. He took his boat out to where the villagers would not see him, and he sank his line. Almost immediately he caught a large trout, but as he was rowing back to shore, he saw the children of the lake wander from their homes back into the dark waters from whence they came. Their mothers called for them, tried to hold on to them, begged them not to leave, but they would not speak, and one by one they disappeared into the lake. The old fisherman then saw, as the children sank into the murky waters, how they turned into large fish, and sped off into the deep. He was shameful, then, and dropped his catch back in the water, but it was too late, and the village would forevermore remain childless.
Are you done? Let me take that back for you.
Ich weiß nicht so recht, was ich sagen soll. Ich bin schwer begeistert. Es hat nichts mit dem Spiel zu tun. Diese letzten beiden Geschichten haben absolut nichts mit diesem Spiel zu tun. Es gibt kein Rätsel und nichts, aber großartig. Wirklich großartig. Und ich glaube, ich hätte nach der ersten Geschichte schon aufhören können, aber also nach dem allerersten Buch, das er mir gezeigt hat, weil ich da diesen Diary-Eintrag bekommen habe. I went to the library. Yes, me. Imagine that. Ja, aber gucken wir mal, ob er noch ein Buch hat. Weil ich meine, ja. Ich meine, wir hätten es alle durch. Again, I'd like to read some more folk tales.
I'd like to read some.
Did I mention how much?
Okay, ich bin gespannt. Kann ich das irgendwie abkürzen hier? Nee, leider nicht. Bin gespannt, ob ich jetzt andere Geschichten bekomme, weil das andere war offensichtlich das gleiche. Also ich möchte das nochmal lesen, stand da immer. Aber jetzt hat sie gesagt, ich möchte ein paar mehr Folktales lesen. Mal gucken, ob es neue gibt.
I did find some.
Okay. Wobei es wäre ja, wie gesagt, also das ist ja nicht vertont, das wäre für die Entwickler. Nee. Wäre es relativ einfach gewesen, da noch so, weiß ich nicht, 10, 20 Geschichten reinzubauen. Man die nur so aufschreiben muss, dann ist es ja kein Problem. Aber, ja. Aber es waren die beiden gleichen Geschichten, also sind wir definitiv durch. Komm, mach voran. Also war's das erstmal. Okay, dann gucken wir uns hier nochmal um. Was mit diesem Rad hier? Was kann ich damit machen? Stuck. Okay, kann ich da irgendwas... Ah, ich habe Münzen bekommen. Interessant. Okay, kann ich das Rad irgendwie... Ne, ich habe kein Öl oder sowas, womit ich das lösen könnte. Was ist das? Pool. Kann ich damit was machen? Na komm, mach voran, Frau.
The water's pretty cold.
Okay. Kaltes Wasser. Nee, kann ich im Moment nichts mit anfangen. Okay, dann verschwinden wir mal wieder. Na komm. Im Laufschritt. So. Also, wie gesagt, das Einzige, was wir wirklich gelernt haben, war... Da gibt es auch nochmal was zu tun irgendwann. Aber im Moment nicht. To the City. Wir haben gehört von diesen fliegenden Wesen, die irgendwo östlich der Stadt zu finden sein sollen. Die Frage ist jetzt... Was tun? Also wo muss ich hin, um das rauszufinden? Aber da bin ich im Moment relativ ratlos. Ich könnte Tobias fragen, obwohl der hat mir geraten, zur Bibliothek zu gehen. Von daher wird der es wahrscheinlich auch nicht wissen. Ich könnte Brian Westhouse fragen, obwohl der hat mir auch nur... Ich weiß gar nicht mehr, von wem ich das weiß mit diesem fliegenden Wesen. Doch Brian Westhouse hat es mir gesagt, dann bin ich zu Westrom Tobias gegangen und der wusste es... Nee, andersrum. Ach, ich weiß es nicht mehr. Auf jeden Fall muss ich zu diesem fliegenden Wesen hin. Aber das... Ach, ich sehe gerade, wir haben jetzt gerade mal 3 Folgen in Folge aufgenommen. Mal gucken, wie ich das schneide. Wird wahrscheinlich schwierig, wenn ich mitten in den Geschichten schneiden muss. Egal, soll eure Sorge nicht sein. Ich bedanke mich wie immer fürs Zuschauen und vielleicht bis zum nächsten Mal.